In this lesson, we will examine how the Industrial Revolution affected people of different social classes. First, we will look at how industrialization led to an expansion of the middle class. Next, we will examine how the Industrial Revolution affected the working class. Factory workers faced harsh conditions in the workplace and often lived in dirty, overcrowded cities. We will examine how urbanization, the growth of cities, was a major part of the Industrial Revolution and the many problems this caused. We will conclude by looking at some of the positive and negative effects of industrialization. The Industrial Revolution led to major changes in European society. Everything was affected by the spread of industrialization: how people lived, how and where they worked, the way social classes interacted, and the roles of women and children in the family. The Industrial Revolution created a larger and more diverse middle class. At the top of the middle class were the wealthy merchants and factory owners who benefited most from the Industrial Revolution. They were known as the bourgeoisie. They lived in beautiful homes with servants and gardens, wore nice clothes, ate the best food, and enjoyed luxuries like running water and later electricity. A lower middle class of factory overseers and skilled workers also benefited from the Industrial Revolution. As industrialization progressed, this group expanded. Though not as rich as the merchants and factory owners, they still lived in well-furnished homes on the outskirts of the cities, at a safe distance from the poverty and filth. In between were the professionals, such as doctors, lawyers, and professors. As before, this group gained wealth and status through education and government service. In the past, wealthy landowners and aristocrats dominated the top positions in society. With most of the wealth, they wielded most of the power. As the middle class grew in size and wealth, they demanded a greater say in government and had more influence in politics. In Britain, for example, laws were passed during the 1800s that gave wealthy middle-class men the right to vote. Social divisions continue to divide the classes, however. Although many aristocratic families facing financial difficulties intermarried with middle-class families, the landowners tended to look down on those who pursued profit and gained wealth through vulgar business activities. By the end of the 1800s, however, these distinctions gradually began to fade. At first, middle-class men opposed social and economic reforms because they believed strongly in the value of discipline and hard work. Many members of the middle class rose from poverty and obscurity through determination and skill, and their rags-to-riches stories were greatly admired. The middle class often had little sympathy for the poor. If they thought of the faceless millions who toiled in the factories and mines, they generally supposed the poor to be responsible for their own misery. Some believed that poverty was the result of ignorance, laziness, and weak moral character, and therefore opposed any effort to help them and further encourage such behavior. In the second half of the 19th century, however, some middle-class men began to embrace reform and worked hard to improve the lives of the working class. By the middle of the 19th century, the middle class had evolved its own way of life. Middle-class families were nuclear with parents and children. They lived in large houses or fancy apartment buildings. The rooms in these houses were filled with the nicest furniture, paintings, and decorations, which reflected both pride in the family's accomplishments and its social status. Middle-class clothing was intended to demonstrate wealth and respectability. Even small middle-class households were expected to have servants, who performed many of the daily chores of cooking and cleaning. In an effort to imitate the aristocracy, as well as distinguish themselves from the working class, a strict code of etiquette governed middle-class social behavior. Rules dictated how to dress, give a dinner party, write letters, and many other tasks. Courtship and marriage for the middle class was a difficult balance between love and practicality. Middle-class men and women had some degree of choice in marriage, and the idea of marriage for love was very appealing to members of the middle class. At the same time, however, most middle-class families also took wealth and status into account. Mothers and daughters sought out good prospects for marriage. Although middle-class men were expected to gain the affection of their prospective wife through tenderness and sentimentality, it was also important that he demonstrate the ability to financially support her and any children that resulted from the marriage. Until the late 1800s, in most Western countries, the husband controlled the wife's property, so marriage contracts were drawn up to protect the daughter's property rights. Within the middle-class family, roles and responsibilities changed with the Industrial Revolution. In pre-industrial times, middle-class women had often helped to run the family business out of the home. In the 1800s, however, middle-class husbands began working outside the home in an office or shop. A successful middle-class husband was one who made enough income that his wife could stay at home and not have to work. Instead, middle-class wives spent their time raising children, directing servants, and engaging in religious and charitable work. Children were strictly supervised and were supposed to be seen but not heard. A child who misbehaved reflected poorly on the entire family. Books, magazines, and popular songs in the 1800s promoted an idea called the cult of domesticity that idealized women and life in the middle-class home. According to this view, the ideal middle-class woman was seen as a tender, self-sacrificing caregiver who provided a comfortable and stimulating environment for her children and a peaceful refuge for her husband after he completed a long and difficult day of work. While the wealthy and middle class prospered, life for the industrial working class was incredibly difficult. The factory system differed greatly from farm work. In rural villages, people worked hard, but their work varied according to the seasons. In factories, workers faced a rigid schedule set by the factory owner, whose goal was to make as much profit as possible. Wages were low because the number of workers was high, and the workday was long, lasting from 12 to 16 hours for 6 days a week. Workers received few breaks, and factories were often dark, dreary places with little light or fresh air. The constant noise of the machinery and the dust and chemicals that filled the air created health problems. Exhausted workers faced the prospect of injury from complicated and dangerous machinery. There were no safety or health regulations in the factory, so many workers were injured or killed in accidents on the job. Workers in mines faced some of the worst conditions during the Industrial Revolution. Mining had always been difficult and dangerous work. As demand for iron and coal skyrocketed in the Industrial Revolution, the need for mine workers also increased. Although miners were often paid better than factory workers, the conditions in the mines were even worse. Miners worked in dark, cramped spaces, and the coal dust destroyed their lungs. There were always the dangers of explosions, flooding, and collapsing tunnels. Even women and children worked in the mines, often having to cart heavy loads of coal through low passages. Children who worked in the mines suffered terribly. Many of them became sick and deformed from the dirty and dangerous working conditions. Early on, workers responded to the changes and hardships of the Industrial Revolution in different ways. Some turned to violence, while others embraced religion. Others pushed for reforms, though their efforts were largely unsuccessful at first. Sometimes, frustration with the new industrial way of life led to violence. The first instances of industrial riots occurred in England from 1811 to 1813. In 1819, workers and their families held a peaceful rally at St. Peter's Field in Manchester. They wanted political and economic reform. Local troops were called in to disperse the crowd. The troops charged into the protesters, and in the confusion that resulted, several demonstrators were killed and many more were injured, including women and children. Reformers named the incident the Peterloo Massacre as an ironic reference to the recent Battle of Waterloo. Weavers and skilled artisans resented the new labor-saving machines that were costing them their jobs. Some of them began smashing machines with sledgehammers and burning down factories. They became known as Luddites, after their semi-legendary founder Ned Ludd, who supposedly destroyed textile machines in the 1780s. There was widespread support for the Luddites among the working class, but the movement faded away when Parliament passed harsh laws against the destruction of industrial machinery. Other workers found comfort in a religious movement called Methodism. This movement was influenced by the Industrial Revolution, as people moved to cities and lost connections with their old churches and communities. The Anglican priest John Wesley had founded the Methodist movement in the mid-1700s by stressing the need for a personal sense of faith. He encouraged followers to improve themselves by adopting sober, moral ways. Methodist meetings featured hymns and sermons promising forgiveness of sin and a better life to come. Methodist preachers took this message of personal salvation into the slums, where they tried to rekindle both hope and morality among the working poor, many of whom had succumbed to hopelessness, despair, and drunkenness. The Methodists set up Sunday schools where followers not only studied the Bible, but also learned to read and write. Methodists helped channel workers' anger away from revolution and toward reform. The majority of early factory workers were women rather than men. Employers preferred to hire women because they thought women could adapt more easily to the machines. It was also widely believed at the time that women were weaker and easier to control. Most importantly, women could be paid much less than men, which reduced expenses for factory owners and enabled them to make greater profits. Factory work created a double burden for women. Their new jobs took them out of their homes for many hours a day, but they still had to worry about feeding and clothing their families and cope with problems like sickness and injury. Families facing high rents and increased costs often needed children to work and raise extra money. Most children started working at age 6 or 7, but in some cases children as young as 5 could be sent to labor in factories if the family was desperate. In their never-ending quest to cut costs and boost profits, factory owners were more than willing to exploit cheap child labor. Because they were smaller and quicker, children could also perform tasks that were impossible for adults, such as crawling inside complicated machines to repair broken parts or jams. The potential for death or injury performing these jobs was extremely high. Conditions were even worse for children who worked in the mines. Some sat all day in the dark, opening and closing air vents, while others hauled heavy carts of coal in extreme heat. Because children had traditionally helped with work on the farm, parents saw little difference with having them work in the factory. For many families, even the meager wages earned by children were needed to keep the family from starving and to pay their rents. The Industrial Revolution brought rapid urbanization, or the movement of people to cities. The revolution in agriculture and the growth of the population caused millions of people to migrate from the countryside into the towns and cities, seeking new economic opportunities. Within a short span of time, towns and cities located near rivers, ports, or supplies of iron and coal swelled in size. Britain experienced some of the fastest growth, with many of its once small towns turning into crowded cities almost overnight. The British market town of Manchester provides a good example of this process. In 1750, Manchester had a population of about 17,000 people. Within a few years, its favorable location caused it to explode into a center of the textile industry. Its population soared to 40,000 by 1780 and 70,000 by 1801. Visitors to the city described its polluted air, the pounding noise of the steam engines, and the filthy stench of the river, into which both industrial and human waste was carelessly dumped. By 1900, about 85% of the British population lived in towns or cities, with London and its suburbs exploding to a population of about 4.5 million. Industrial cities like Manchester and Birmingham had over 500,000 people. The sudden and rapid growth of Britain's cities created enormous problems, which were repeated in Europe and the United States when industrialization eventually spread there. Industrial cities everywhere grew quickly and haphazardly, with few basic services to meet the needs of the people. Housing was a serious problem because there was never enough to meet the demands of all the people moving into the cities. The main form of housing for the working poor was the tenement, a multi-story building divided into small, overcrowded apartments. These buildings lacked running water and waste disposal. Though conditions in the tenements were deplorable, the lack of housing enabled landlords to charge outrageous prices that further added to the poverty and misery of the residents. Since most children worked, there were no schools or opportunities for education. No police existed, so crime was a constant problem. Sewers were non-existent, so human and animal waste filled the streets and alleys. This, combined with the lack of fresh water and overcrowded living conditions, allowed disease to spread rapidly. Areas of cities that became filled with squalor, disease, and crime were referred to as slums. Many books of the time period describe the terrible living conditions in the cities. For example, Elizabeth Gaskell's novel Mary Barton, published in 1848, vividly described the horrible living conditions experienced by working families in the city of Manchester in England. By the end of the 1800s, reform movements inspired by people like Gaskell led to serious efforts to improve sanitation and living conditions in cities. Artists also tried to capture the filth and squalor of the industrial city. Shown here is Over London by Rail, which was created in 1872 by the artist Gustave Doré. Its powerful use of light and shade to show the overcrowding and darkness of a London slum has made it one of the most famous and frequently used images of the industrial city. Overcrowding and polluted water were a major problem in British cities during the Industrial Revolution. In London and other cities, most people got their drinking water straight from nearby rivers and streams, which were often contaminated by sewage and industrial waste. This led to the rapid spread of deadly diseases, especially cholera. In 1849, for example, a vicious outbreak of cholera killed thousands of London residents, most of them poor workers. Many writers and reformers tried to raise public awareness about cholera and other diseases. For example, the famous political cartoon seen here is called A Court for King Cholera, and comes from an 1852 edition of a British magazine. The artist shows how the squalor and filthy living conditions in London slums provided a perfect breeding ground for the disease. One of the main reasons that disease spread so rapidly in industrial cities was the destruction of the environment. Factories poured waste materials and toxic chemicals into rivers and harbors. Garbage and excrement were dumped into streets and rivers, causing not only a terrible stench but also contaminating drinking water. This contamination was made worse by the chemicals, smoke, and industrial waste produced by the factories. The Irwell River in Manchester, England, was ruined by the dumping of toxic industrial waste, causing more disease and suffering for the people. As with housing, by the end of the 1800s, major efforts were undertaken to reduce industrial pollution. Despite the problems it created in the short term, in the long run the Industrial Revolution produced many benefits. The Industrial Revolution created more jobs for workers. It contributed to increasing the wealth of many nations, even if at first only a small number of people enjoyed the benefits of this. Standard of living is a term used to describe the quality of life enjoyed by people based on a combination of factors, including income, quality of housing, and working hours. Despite the hardships of the early Industrial Revolution, by the late 1800s, the standard of living for most people rose. Industrial goods and services became cheaper, and governments passed reform laws. Workers benefited from fewer hours, higher wages, and better conditions. The Industrial Revolution created more demand for clerks, engineers, and other professionals, who expanded the ranks of the middle class in most Western countries. The growth of industry also fueled more technological progress and innovation. Now that we have completed this lesson, examine the questions on this slide. After I finish speaking, pause the video and see if you can answer them based on what you have heard. Use this as a way to help you review for the assessments.